All right, Frosty, how's it going?
Good, John. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. How's this week been so far?
It's been good. Been pretty busy. Got a lot of things that I'm working on, but that should be every week.
That's right, that's right. No rest, no rest for the gifted, my man.
I like what you did to change that there.
That's right. So thank you so much for taking the time. Why don't we just take it from the top? Where are you from?
Yeah. So I was born in Seward, Nebraska, and then lived there a little bit in my early childhood, and then when I was about 6 years old, around 2000, moved to South Carolina, and then spent the rest of my childhood years there. Joined the Marine Corps in 2015, and then I went to Camp Pendleton, California, and spent 5 years there. And then I spent 2.5 years in Hawaii, over at the Marine Corps base there. And then I just got out, I guess it'd be 4 weeks ago now, tomorrow. So,
Well, as always, thank you. Welcome back, and thank you for your service.
my pleasure.
So South Carolina to Omaha to Hawaii. I mean, one of the things, like I've told you always, is that your story and your dedication and really just your willingness to kind of put yourself out there in new situations is pretty inspiring.
Thank you.
No doubt. So to kind of walk it back just a little bit, how did the name Frosty come about?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, Wendy's used to do a promotional thing around Halloween where they would sell books of Frosty coupons, like for the junior Frosties. And I was like, oh, I can get 10 Frosties for $1 if I just stock up on these. So I would stock up on these little booklets, and I would have them year round. So as often as I could, I would go to Wendy's and I would get a Frosty because they have great ice cream. So I just always had those, and a couple of kids started making fun of me with that, and I was like, okay, I can rock the name Frosty. That works.
It's really actually sort of, they did you a benefit by bringing that into your life, I think.
They did.
And I have to say, I've been a Frosty fan my entire life. Never met a Frosty I didn't like. I individuals and the actual Frosties at Wendy's. So big shout out to Wendy's.
Oh yeah, I still go there all the time. I love that stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, you cannot knock Wendy's, just period.
When I first met my wife, she was like, she loves to eat like very healthy food and all that stuff, and I do too. But this one evening, it was kind of late. We were coming back from the beach over in Hawaii, and they just built a new Wendy's on our side of the island. And I was like, babe, let's go to Wendy's. And she was like, ha ha ha, you're joking, right? And I was like, no, let's go to Wendy's.
So how long, so your congratulations again on being recently married.
Yeah, recently married. Got married
Right.
4 months ago. Yeah.
Congratulations, that's amazing. How long did the Frosty namesake story come out? Like, basically, your wife knew about this Frosty, the meaning behind the word Frosty, early on in their relationship, or is it something that she just stumbled upon later?
She actually knew about it probably, I guess, the first time we hung out. So I do big wave surfing when I'm not doing photography or anything.
Right.
So I have a very good friend of mine. His name is Victor. He does surf filming. So him and I kind of like worked as a tandem team in Hawaii. He would do the filming side, I would do the photography side, and we just kind of double tap it. But some days he'd just come out and film for me just for fun when I would go surf. And I'd gotten hurt surfing at Waimea Bay, messed my back up a little bit. So I went to a chiropractic office, and that's how I met my wife. She was the receptionist there. But because I'd been to that chiropractic office several times, like, she kind of like knew a little bit about my information and whatnot. And my email that I had on file was it's had a piece in there that relates to Nebraska, and my wife is from Nebraska. And so she was like, "Oh, hey, do you have any relation to Nebraska?" And I was just like, "Yeah." And I didn't follow up anything about that. And she kept asking me about it and asking me about it. But so she knew my real name from the get-go.
Right.
But then the first time that we hung out, I made her get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning so that she could come with Victor and I to go up north, up to the North Shore, and go surf. And she was going to come along and watch. And so then when she met Victor, he's calling me Frosty, and she was like, "This is
Right.
confusing. What's your real name? What's going on here?" So I had to explain that.
That's great. That's a great story. I mean, she got to see your, I don't want to say your alter ego or anything like that, but she got to see the call sign in real time. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up, I mean, like, I said, you throw yourself into all kinds of stuff. So obviously you must have been playing a whole host of different sports when you were a kid.
Yeah, I grew up playing basketball, football, baseball, and soccer. So
And
I always loved to be really active, and I was homeschooled growing up, so I've never been to school.
oh wow.
So I, as often as I could, pretty much make my own schedule with school, so I could base it around sports and everything else that I wanted to do. So I got working from a very young age because, working helped me pay for sports and, different trips like that and things. So sports kept me out of trouble and very active, and it was just really enjoyable to me. I never ever dreamed that I'd get into surfing because where I grew up in South Carolina, we're like 3 or 4 hours from the beach. So didn't spend a whole lot of time at the beach when I was a kid. And then when I joined the Marine Corps, I was like, oh, I'm an active guy. I can do this. So
yeah. So explain that to me. So you're how old when you decided to join the Marines?
I was 20 when I joined the Marines, and I hadn't really thought anything of it. The way that it all works, I was a helicopter mechanic, and the impression that I was under from the recruiters and everything that I'd been told was that I would be going to Florida for school, and then I would probably get stationed somewhere on the East Coast. That didn't happen. I went to school in California, got stationed in California, and then after I finally got to my unit in California, there was a crew chief there at my unit that he did a lot of surfing on his off time, and I was like, that's something I want to get into. So I bought a board from him and started going. I didn't know anything about it. First time I showed up to the beach, I had no idea what surf wax was. I went out with no wax at all, didn't have a leash, made an absolute fool of myself, but I learned. So
Well, I mean, it's hard to go out without a leash. I mean, typically the best people are the ones that do that. So, you got to you started just right at the top.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I want to get into the surf stuff. I still want to stay on the Marine Corps just for a bit.
Okay.
So just again, like, I think that everybody has an absolute, an unfailing amount of respect, like it or not, for the Marine Corps, right? First in, last out. I think that everybody has seen a group of Marines. Everybody knows the level of camaraderie, but just talk about it from your vantage point as to like what that all means to you.
Well, fun fact, if you didn't know this, the Marine Corps is older than the United States itself. But the Marine Corps, for me, was kind of interesting. I didn't really know a lot about it. I have a very large family, and I have a lot of cousins that were military. My dad was in the Army, and my neighbors growing up, they were all Marines. Like my neighbor had 5 sons, and they were all Marine Corps. And I always thought that was really interesting because I worked for my neighbor doing landscaping when I was in high school. And he always talked to me about it. He was like, "Oh, it's a great job. You gotta go do it. Gotta go get it in the Marine Corps." And I was like, "Well, I looked it up a little bit online. And it says that they're the best of the best." And none of my cousins were Marine Corps. They were all like Army, Navy, stuff like that. And I was like, "Well, where I fall in my cousin tree is I'm at the bottom. I'm the oldest of my family, but everyone in my family is the youngest." So I was like, I want to do something different. So I joined the Marine Corps, not really knowing too much about it. And ended up being the best decision I could have made in my life. They are definitely very hardcore, very. They got a lot of screws loose. You kind of have to be in the Marine Corps, but they're good guys. They'll do anything for you. I've never met another group of people that it doesn't matter if you don't know them. You could call them and they'll be there. You break down on the side of the road. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. You just call your buddy and be like, "Hey man, I need you to come get me." So I never had like car insurance or like that. What is it? The roadside insurance that comes and helps you. Never had that the whole time I was in the Marine Corps because I just call a friend.
Because you don't need it, right?
No, you don't need it.
Right. Nah, I mean, it's it's in many ways, I just feel like the Marine Corps is a fraternity within the broader fraternity of being in the military itself. And my father was stationed with the Marines when he was in the Navy, and his highest remarks for all the people that he served with were always all the guys that were in the Marines. So yeah, you had a funny story, by the way, about just like the different groups within the Corps itself that you're serving with. Like you mentioned like the dudes playing hoops at the gym, the guys that were like working on the Cobra helicopters with you. Like you said,
Yeah. So
a couple
I was I was a helicopter mechanic.
Yeah.
I worked on Hueys and Cobras, pretty old helicopters, but very good pieces of machinery. That's the entire culture that I knew within the Marine Corps. I never really hung out with infantry guys or groundside guys or anything like that. But twice a year, every year, we have this exercise that goes on in Yuma, Arizona. It's called WTI. It's a weapons tactics. It's a weapons tactics course where you get like tanks and infantry guys and just people from all walks of life within the Marine Corps. We all get together and do like wartime exercises and stuff like that. But you have a little bit of downtime too. So I'm playing basketball at the gym one day, and a bunch of these guys were like, "Oh, hey, you work on skids, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, dude, we got to come hang out with you guys. You guys are crazy." Which I had no idea that we were viewed as crazy, because that was my baseline. That's who I hung out with. So all these guys came over to the smoke pit, the common area, to hang out with us that night, and we were throwing a big party. We had a bunch of coolers with all different kinds of drinks and stuff like that, and we're just all family. We just all get together and have a really good time and get a little crazy sometimes. So, but it's nice because as crazy as you get, you don't have to worry about it, because you always have a friend right there to be like, "Hey, okay, it's time to go home. We're going to cut this off. Nobody's getting in trouble tonight." So.
Right. And it, like you said, it sounds like the idea of leadership, in that respect, just is like everybody kind of shares in that responsibility to an extent, it sounds like.
Yeah. The Marine Corps is very big on small unit leadership. So I guess to like measure it to like other branches, a lot of times I've heard it compared to the Navy, where you can be like an E5 and E6, something like that, and then you start getting responsibility. But we start teaching responsibility at E1, E2 type levels. You're in charge of whoever's under you. You take care of them. They're your responsibility. Their training, what they're doing with their life, how their finances are, all of that stuff. Like, we're very involved in everybody's life within the Marine Corps. And you get guys that are they can move up through the ranks very quickly because they're very good at taking care of their guys. And you get other guys that need a lot of help, and not all the time, because nobody's perfect, but most of the time we have an opportunity to help straighten those guys out and create a better life for them. So.
Right. Yep. And your fellow, service people were relying on you to make certain that they just straight up weren't going to fall out of the sky.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. So my qualifications were, I was a CDQAR. So it's a collateral duty quality assurance representative. So my job is pretty much to ensure that all maintenance on the aircraft is done correctly and without fault. So nothing can possibly happen to the aircraft mechanically. It can't fail. so that, you know, when my pilots and crew chiefs go out, they're going to come back safely as long as there's no other issues that they go on. So it's a lot of responsibility, and you know, we teach that that's really important, because you may not be the one flying on the aircraft, but your best friend is. So everything has to be done, you know, very methodically and to the highest quality.
Amen. No doubt about it. So that's kind of where, you know, I wanted to kind of start our transition here into the surf piece, because, you know, like you said, there's really high stakes for you not doing your job when you're a helicopter mechanic. And
Yeah.
and in the same context, there's obviously very high stakes when you're either surfing or filming anything involving a big wave.
Yeah.
There's just like a whole different set of circumstances going on there.
Yeah. I actually got really interested in big wave surfing through a couple of movies. I saw Bethany Hamilton's Soul Surfer. That's kind of where I got the idea for surfing. And I was like, that's kind of something cool. But then I saw this other movie called Chasing Mavericks, Jay Moriarty, and there's Frosty in that movie too. But that kind of like got my interest. So I started looking up as many videos that I could find on YouTube at the time of, you know, big wave surfing, you know, what kind of stuff is out there. I can't remember what the video was, but I saw this one video that was talking about how like big wave surfing is like very similar to being in the military. Everybody's relying on each other. Everybody has a job to do, and you've become very tight knit because it's such an intense circumstance. And that kind of really drew me into that. I was like, I love that camaraderie, that brotherhood, and I love surfing. So how do I start getting into that? And I just, you know, was like, okay, I guess the best way to do that would just be to like be there. So I didn't have any of those opportunities to do that while I was in California, but the opportunity came up to get transferred to Hawaii, and I was like, oh, I know they have big waves there. I got to go. So I moved to Hawaii with the Marine Corps in 2020, and just started asking around to see what I could do to get into that. But yeah, big wave surfing is very interesting. Like you have to really know the people that you're around, and know that everybody is out there for the same reason that you are. And whereas, yeah, you kind of want to compete with other people and make sure that you get your wave, but you also want to make sure that everybody's safe and everybody is having a good time and everybody comes home. So
Right. Yeah. No, the best surfer in the water is the one having the most fun, right?
yes.
Okay. So still kind of walking it back. So you and I'm sorry for belaboring the process, because you do have such a cool story. So you move to San Diego, like you said, you buy this 9-foot long board. You know, you are not the you know, you're just kind of coming in, you're just diving into the deep end, literally, when it comes to the world of surfing. You said that this first cream colored longboard snapped in half.
Yeah. So I you know, back when I first started surfing, I didn't know anything about it. Didn't have any friends that surfed. I was the only person at my unit that surfed, other than that other guy. But he didn't. He was like, I don't want to teach you. You can just do it yourself. So I would go out and I would surf by myself for probably 6 or 7 months. And
In San Diego, right? So
yeah,
like,
in San Diego.
Where would you start paddling out in San Diego?
I don't know the proper name for the place, but if you go down just south of Carlsbad, there's like a little area there where it kind of like gets a little bit rural just before you get to I think it's the Encinitas area.
La Costa. Yeah.
Yeah. I would go out there because there was nobody there. So I was like, okay, this is probably a safe place for me to learn how to surf, because I can't hurt anybody else. I can't get in anybody else's way. So I'm just going to surf here. And I would go there religiously, like every day, because I was working night crew at the time. So I would I would go to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I would wake up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and I would go surf for several hours, and then I'd come home, take a nap, and then go back to work. But yeah, I just was like, if I just stay consistent and just put my time in trying to learn and figure out what I'm doing, then I'll get it. So did that for probably 6 months, and then I decided, I was like, okay, I'm ready to try a different beach. So I went to Del Mar Beach on the Marine Corps base because I'd heard that it had good surfing. Not necessarily the case, depends on the day, but I took off on this wave and I had not figured out how to turn yet. It was way too big for me, but I did it anyway, and I snapped my board in half, and I was like, oh no, what do I do now? So I was like, I guess I'll just go buy another surfboard. But I was like, in my head, I was feeling a little cocky. I was like, okay, I can do a short board. That'll be no problem. So I went and bought a short board. It was a 5'6", way too short for me because I'm a 6'1", 6'2" guy. And yeah, I spent like another 4 or 5 months screwing around on that thing, basically trying not to relearn because it was way too small for me. Finally got it. It worked for what I wanted it to do, but no. Don't recommend that. If you watch this and you're just learning, don't get a short board.
Don't go from a 9-foot longboard to a 5'6" shortboard.
Definitely not. No, just work into it.
So it's super impressive. Like you said, you're maintaining all of your duties and responsibilities in the Marine Corps, which again, working on aviation equipment is a real deal job. Like you're not just like clocking in, clocking out, and being like, whatever this helicopter is going to do is going to do. That's a responsibility that must be taken seriously.
Absolutely.
You then, like you said, you get off work, clock out from the Corps, go and get some sleep for a minute, and then you're coming back, and you started working at the Whitlock Surf Factory in Carlsbad, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to the Whitlocks. I should say that back when I was starting my company in 2005, 2006, I did do a few things with the Whitlocks. Ricky Whitlock, shout out. Good people.
Yeah. Rusty Whitlock, great guy. He fantastic shaper. Guy, he has a fantastic story too. Very interesting guy to talk to. But yeah, I had fallen in love with surfing so much. I was young. I was like, okay, when I get out of the Marine Corps, what am I going to do to stay around this culture? Because I love everything about the surf culture. I don't know what other people's experiences have been, but everyone that I met was very, very nice and was just so awesome and just loved everything about surfing. I was like, man, these guys are great. Like, I want to be a part of this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to see if I can find like a shop to kind of like learn how to shape boards at. So I went and started interning at the Whitlock Surf Factory, like you said. And I met this guy, George. He's a dude from Portugal. He's a fantastic shaper. And he kind of just became a really good friend of mine. And he would teach me the little things about how to fix boards and how to work on my own boards. And
what's George's last name?
What's that?
What's George's last name?
George Elias.
Shout out, George.
Yeah. He's fantastic. He's now since moved to Canada and he runs his own surf shop up there. Check it out on Instagram, Altered Blade.
Very cool.
So yeah, but
it's around the Vancouver Island area,
yeah? Yeah, I'll have to look up exactly what island it is. It's right across the border though.
And the name of the shop one more time.
Altered Blade.
Altered Blade. Cool.
Yeah, Altered Blade. He makes great boards.
George. Not easy starting a business in any era, but I think particularly this one. But we digress. Go ahead.
But yeah, so I started spending a lot of time with George, and I would, I'd get there around like, well, I would after a couple of weeks, George and I would go, we'd go surf together, probably around like 7 or 8 in the morning. He started taking me to like the Rock in Oceanside. It's a spot maybe like 2 miles south of the Oceanside Pier. We go to the pier some days if it was good, and other times the harbor. But he was great for me learning how to surf. He really like taught me like what I was doing wrong and how to fix, making my turns and how to do better carves, things like that. So he was a fantastic guy. But yeah, so I would surf with him from about 7 or 8 in the morning until about 10, and then we'd go to work, and he would teach me stuff throughout the day, and we'd joke, and he speaks really good English, but he was teaching me a little bit of Portuguese and just really opening up my eyes to the wild expanses of things that I didn't know about other parts of life. Because, you know, he grew up in Portugal. I grew up in the United States, haven't had a lot of interaction with people that grew up in other countries and stuff. So very, very interesting to do that. But yeah, so I would work there until about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then I would, you know, go home, go to the Marine Corps, work all night, and then do it again.
Wow. And I mean, you know, it's just interesting visually to think about somebody changing out of, you know, whatever, the uniform that pretty much everybody in Southern California wears, which is like pair of flip-flops, pair of shorts, t-shirt, maybe a hat, right?
Yeah.
Versus, you know, clocking into the Corps where you have to have your gig line set and you have to have certain standards in place with respect to what you're wearing and how you're wearing it and all that kind of stuff. So like you're kind of navigating these two aesthetics and these two very different sets of rules, I guess, in and out of the Corps.
Yeah, I got in trouble a couple of times because I would come into work like right at the time where I was supposed to be there, and I'd be in board shorts and a t-shirt, and then I'd have to change over, and people would be like, "What are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be in your uniform already." And I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm running a little late." So yeah, that some Marine Corps guys didn't understand surfing as much, but surfing is definitely something I think that it's a double whammy. I think everybody should do it because it'll change your life and it's a fantastic thing. But please don't do it because the lineups are getting so crowded.
Right. Yeah. No. Explain that. So, you know, everybody's talked about how the lineups have gotten that much more crowded post-pandemic, or I guess pandemic and onward. Which I guess makes sense. And at the same time, yeah, like you said, I mean, it's a healthy thing to do. You're connecting with nature. You're connecting with you're connecting with sort of the Earth's energy. And then you're one of the people that is not only enjoying that, learning that, but then like starting to capture that. And so, you know, when did you decide there was time for you to pick up a camera and a housing?
Oh man, let's see. I was interning at the Whitlock Surf Factory, and prior to this actually, so I picked up a camera because I knew that I was gonna be doing some cool things in the Marine Corps. So I wanted to be able to like document that and have those have those pictures for me to remember, you know, when I was old and stuff like that. But then I really fell in love with just like taking awesome pictures because there were so many cool things that I got to do. I got to travel around with the Marine Corps a lot to different places like Wyoming. I did a couple things up there and been to Arizona a couple times. But yeah, so I had picked up a camera and was shooting in the Marine Corps. And then George asked me to come out and shoot one day. He was like, "Hey man, like, I know you do pictures. Can you come out and take some pictures for me, you know, while I surf?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." So I brought my camera out and I was shooting from the beach, and I was like, "Okay, this is nice, but I want to be in there. I want to be like right next to him. You know, I've heard of stuff like that. So how do I get out there?" So I went online to B&H Photography, shout out to them. And they had this little Ziploc bag that you could put your camera in. And it was like 40 or $50. And I was like, cool, that's within my budget. That probably works good. So I'll do that. So it worked for about 3 weeks. And it was just, in hindsight, that's one of the scariest things I think I ever did, because putting a really expensive camera in a little plastic bag, not my wisest decision. But yeah, so I did that, and
Hey, Frosty, but it worked. It worked for the time. It worked for the time being.
It worked for the time being. So California, definitely safe enough to do that. Hawaii, don't recommend.
Right. So you moved to Hawaii beginning of the pandemic. You're just now starting to get into surf photography at this time, right?
Yeah.
So at that point in time, you've been surfing for probably, you said like 4 to 5 years or something like
that?
Yeah,
this is 4 to 5 years ish.
So you, like by the time you get to Hawaii, like you're very comfortable in the water, but had you just started doing like a lot more surf photography, or like where were you in the surf photography thing when you moved to Hawaii?
So I had done enough surf photography in California that I knew I wanted to to be a part of it, because there are several like WSL competitions that like on the QS series that happen in Oceanside. So I would go to those every year, and I would shoot from the pier. I'd get a good spot on the pier, and I was just kind of hoping that maybe I would find a way to get in with them and like shoot for the competition or something. Never happened, but at least I went around and asked. I went to the QS series tent one time and was like, hey, can I go shoot like for the competition? And I had no idea what I was doing. And they were like, no, you need like a press pass and you got to submit your credentials and stuff like prior to the competition. So I was like, okay, well that's not going to work. So I would just go up on the pier and I would shoot, and I got to shoot a lot of really awesome surfers. Like I met Bethany Hamilton there when she released her Unstoppable film a couple years ago. So it was really great. At the time she had become one of my like big, what do you call them? Inspirations, yeah. I guess. Yeah. Yeah. She's a fantastic lady, but yeah, so I got to shoot some pictures there at that. And, I was learning more about how to frame the picture and things. So then when I moved to Hawaii, I was like, okay, this is the mecca of surfing. You have to be there if you want to be anything in surf photography. So I went online, did a little bit more research, and I still didn't really know what I should be looking for. So I had seen this documentary called The White Rhino about big wave surfing. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, definitely go watch it. It's on Amazon. But the main character through that film was this surf photographer, Brian Bielman. And I'm not afraid to call anybody. So I just looked his number up online and just called him one day and was like, hey man, I'm new to this. Do you have any tips? What should I be looking for? And he was like, oh yeah, definitely. This is what you need. He set me up with exactly what I should be looking for and what to get in a water housing. So I went and picked up a CMT water housing, and I just started swimming out in the water and was like, okay, like the best way to learn things is by experience. For me, maybe not for everybody, but for me, that's how it is. So I bought a new camera. I bought a Sony A7R III and bought the water housing, and I started going.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, a lot of people get intimidated about a lot of things, but I mean, I wouldn't say that, surfing and particularly surf photography is the most approachable of combinations.
No, it's definitely not. It is. There's a lot of learning that goes into it, understanding the beach, understanding the tides and the swell angle and the weather and who else is there and where you need to be at in relation to the surfer. What kind of style does this surfer have? Is he going to be coming this direction or that direction? And where should I sit in the water? How much do I need to be working out to be able to swim this lineup to stay in the right spot versus getting carried away by the current? Like there's a lot more that goes into it that people don't really realize. So it's a pretty awesome thing. But I was very fortunate. I got to meet Victor probably within a couple months of being in Hawaii. Victor and I met. Victor, he's also in the Navy, so we had a common ground there. But we were both trying to break into surf photography and surf filming, and we just bonded over that. And we started to train together, and we went and swam pipeline together for the first time, and we just pretty much done it all together. So
would you say that you're like 10x the swimmer that you used to be at this point?
Absolutely. I definitely not as great of a swimmer as I would dream of being, but there's always room for improvement. So, and you're always your own worst critic. But
of course.
Yeah, learning how to swimming with a camera is wildly different than surfing with a surfboard. But there are upsides and downsides to both of those.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. You're lugging around quite a bit of weight with one and quite a bit of volume with the other.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, and then where would you say that like was the first, you said you went and swam pipe together. I mean, was that like the first kind of indoctrination, if you will, in terms of like really feeling the kind of power of the ocean in Hawaii?
Oh man, let's see. First, Well, actually, like backing up to that, the first time that I really experienced the power of the ocean in Hawaii was I had met a guy at work with the Marine Corps, and people, I was the new guy because it was a new unit to me. But people had been throwing around the rumor that, like, I was new to the unit. I surfed. So then this guy came and found me. His name's Walker. He's a dude from Florida, grew up surfing, all that stuff, had way more experience than I had. But he was like, "Oh, dude, you surf?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Cool, let's go surf Waimea." And this is my third week being in Hawaii. And so I hadn't really gotten out and like surfed a whole lot because I was getting my house settled and figuring out, how my unit was working. So I hadn't really gotten out there yet. But I was like, "Yeah, dude, I'm down." Also, I didn't really know that much about Waimea at the time. But he was like, "Yeah, it's going to be at like 15 feet." And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And I was like, "Do I need a different board?" And he was like, "No, just bring a longboard. You'll be fine." So I was like, I know I don't have a gun, but a longboard is similar to a gun in some regards, it should be fine. So yeah, we went, and this was like right as the pandemic started. I think it was like the first or second weekend that the pandemic had blown up, but we were like, okay, well, let's go and see what happens. So we get out there at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was like perfect Waimea, not too big, not too small, good enough that you could have fun, but still learn. And yeah, I went out on a longboard and got wrecked a couple times, but I got some really fun waves out of it. And yeah, I'm so thankful for I'm so thankful that there was nobody out that day. I don't want to say I'm thankful for the pandemic, but I've never seen Waimea Bay like that.
Okay, so back
So
to back to the day of Waimea. Back to the day of Waimea.
yeah, so I'm not thankful for the pandemic, but having Waimea to yourself is a gift. And I didn't realize it at the time. I just didn't know. But yeah, myself and Walker were the only two people out at Waimea Bay, and I'm on a longboard, he's on a wave storm, and we just had so much fun. We got out after that, and we were like, okay, we got to get guns. So after that we went and found some guys that were selling some big wave guns, and we were like, cool, we're buying them. Bought them, and I've been doing big wave surfing at Waimea since then. I'm not trying to dip my toe too far into the water before I'm ready, but
Right.
I've surfed Waimea now probably like 17 times. So
Yeah, so explain that to me. I mean, like, obviously everybody knows the well-earned reputation of certain places in the surf world being competitive or perhaps standoffish or whatever. So talk about some of your experiences there, because it seems like you have no problem kind of traversing these boundaries.
yeah, my theory on things is, treat others the way you want to be treated. So, if you're kind and respectful to everybody else, regardless of if it's their home break or your home break or whatever, then they're gonna treat you with respect. Everybody starts with a certain level of respect. You only lose it if you treat people the wrong way. That's how I operate anyway. So, when I go to new lineups and things like that, I sit on the outside and I watch what everybody else is doing and figure out who's kind of the boss and stuff like that. And I don't try to get in anyone's way, but I just try to be respectful of everyone, and we're all there for the same thing, for the love of surfing. So, we're all just trying to do the same thing. But Waimea Bay was awesome. I was a little nervous about it because, I didn't know what the lineup would be like. I'd never really experienced other big wave surfers before, but everyone out there was fantastic. They were really, really nice. I got to surf with people like Polly Ralda and Jamie Mitchell, and they're fantastic, awesome people. So great role models to look up to.
Yeah. So you like you said, you I think in any environment, paying your dues is a pretty, natural thing, right? Is part of the
Absolutely
the evolution. And like you said, also kind of just, finding a group that and you like and you trust to kind of learn from. And it seems like you are kind of a natural at being able to learn from the folks around you, which is maybe kind of like the best skill anybody could ever have.
Oh, thank you.
No, no doubt, no doubt. So you really established, I think, just such an amazing routine for yourself, being that, you know, you weren't a local to Southern California, you weren't a local to Hawaii, and then at the same time, there you are out at Waimea with a dedicated group of friends doing what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So explain the the transition that you recently just went through in terms of getting married, transitioning out of the Marine Corps, and now you're preparing for this really amazing adventure in Ireland.
Yeah. So I went to I went to Jaws for the first time back in November 2021. That was my first time there. And I just went on a whim, just trying because I wanted to be there. You know, Jaws is a pinnacle place in the surfing world. It's massive, beautiful water. But anyway, I bought a plane ticket and went over there just to shoot from the cliff, just because like I wanted to be there. I wanted to have those photographs. So while I was there, you know, I didn't have a huge reputation built as being a big wave surf photographer yet. So I gave away all of the photos that I took. I, you know, gave a bunch to Ian Walsh, and I sent some to Kai Lenny and, you know, different guys like that, Francisco Porcella. But that was, you know, that was something that I felt was, you know, the right thing to do. Because, you know, if it were me surfing out there, I'd want to have those photographs. And being from my position, you know, I didn't feel like I had the reputation to be like, hey, like, you guys should pay me money for this or whatever. So I kind of gave most of those photos away. And that really benefited me in a lot of ways, because I got really good friends out of it, like Katie McConnell and Adam Amin and stuff like that. And anyway, so I met Adam via email. And being the type of guy that I am, I don't mind, you know, helping anybody out if I can. And so him and I had an email thing going back and forth about these photos. And a couple of weeks after that, he put a thing out on Instagram saying like, oh, hey, I'm on Oahu trying to surf the Waimea Bay swell. And I wasn't going to be able to do that swell because I had some other things that I was doing with my girlfriend at the time, not my wife. And he was like, I need a board. I didn't bring the right board. And so I hit him up back on Instagram, and I was like, hey man, you know, just come borrow my board. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. So I loaned him my big wave gun, and he went and used it for the whole weekend. And then when he was done, he was like, oh, hey, well, I want to take you guys to dinner, you know, just as a thank you. So I had no idea what this guy was going to be like, because I've never met him in person. I've only seen him from the cliff, you know, it's, you know, like half a mile away or whatever. So we went to dinner, and I got to meet Adam. He's a fantastic guy, originally from England, which that blew me away because I didn't know that at first. He shows up to dinner and he's got an English accent, and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds nice.
Right. So like, I mean, that's just so crazy, because you're like, yeah, this guy's a great guy, but you know, you can't get the accent over email, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, so we kind of just bonded over that and stuff. And I was like, hey man, if you ever come back to Oahu, feel free to hit me up. You can come stay at my place. I have extra couches and an extra room, you know, just come crash at my place so you don't have to worry about booking a place or anything like that. So he took me up on it, and he ended up coming over a couple of weeks again after that. And we just kind of became friends, because he would come and spend like a week or so of time at my house over on Oahu. And you know, we were kind of talking about how he wanted to do more surfing across, you know, different breaks around the world and things like that. And I was like, I want to be there. I want to go like shoot those waves. I want to go do this. And so we kind of came up with this idea that we would see what we could do to make this more of a constant lifestyle of just like chasing the swells around the world. But me being in the Marine Corps, that's not really something that I can do at the time. So I was kind of like biting off more than I could chew at the time. I was like, hey man, like, if I get out of the Marine Corps in time, then, we'll do that. If I don't, then, maybe I'll help you out a couple years down the road. But it worked out. God is good and everything happens for a reason. So the Marine Corps said that they didn't want to have me around anymore due to some religious, differences. And I got separated about a month ago in July. And Adam and I had kind of been talking about that prior to things. We had kind of come up with this idea that we wanted to see if we could get some more traction if we went to Ireland and Portugal. So Adam's a pretty cool dude. He's been in the news all over the place and has really been charging on big waves, and he's got some real special talent to him. And so yeah, we came up with this plan. We're going to go to Ireland sometime in between November and December, and go surf Mullaghmore and hopefully Nazaré if it works out. And we're going to be doing a YouTube series, just kind of documenting the whole thing. There'll be a lot of other stuff in there besides just those 2 waves. But yeah, definitely make sure you comment, like, share, subscribe. We're going to try to do an episode a week and keep everybody interested, which is very, very cool for me because I've kind of been talking to different people around here where I live now, and they're like, oh, what are you doing in Ireland? I'm like, well, we're surfing. But not if you're not in the surfing world, most people have no idea that there's any surfing in Ireland.
Right.
Most people think it's Hawaii, California, maybe Florida.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, I think that that entire area, like you said, from a standpoint of getting in the water, is still very novel, and still something that I think even a lot of the people in that neck of the woods probably just are just only now getting more exposure to.
Yeah.
So no, that makes total sense. I mean, being half Irish myself, I think it's phenomenal because I've never been there. I've never seen it, but everybody knows how beautiful that they say that whole part of the world is. And so I think that you're obviously poised for a remarkable adventure. You and Adam.
It will be good. It will be good. So I'm really excited as to what we're gonna be able to do with all of that. And Mullaghmore, if you've ever seen it on YouTube or anything like that, it's a fantastic wave. Very scary, but it should be real fun. There's going to be a lot of good stuff to come out of that.
So for the YouTube series, have you and Adam kind of gone back and forth at all about a name or a title for this?
Oh, we have not come up with a title for it yet. We're still in a little bit of the planning process of that, but it's definitely a go. We are going to do this. Just kind of figuring out the minor details, and once I get that put together and we're able to put out a trailer or get people interested, then I will definitely let you guys know about that.
That's awesome. No, I'm so excited for you, for Adam, and you and your new wife. I mean, this is the stuff that legends are made out of. Just, pack it up and get off to Ireland and shoot some of the biggest waves in Europe. That's amazing.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So.
Well, look, Frosty, I mean, it's amazing that America's service people can rely on you to keep them in the skies. And it's amazing that some of the best big wave surfers in the world can count on you to get the shot. I think it's hats off to you, sir.
I appreciate it.
No doubt. Well, look, I really appreciate you taking the time, and let's definitely do a check-in here about the journey that you're about to go on. So I look forward to tapping with you again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right.